If a local business makes $200 one year and $400 the next year, did that business double in size? In year one, our bakery made exactly 100 cupcakes at $2 each, totaling $200. In year two, they still made 100 cupcakes, but rising costs pushed the price to $4. Now the total is $400. On paper, the revenue doubled, but if you look at the actual shelves, the physical output was completely stagnant. The bakery didn't bake a single extra cupcake. This same illusion happens on a massive scale when we try to measure the health of an entire country using a metric called GDP. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. You can think of it as a giant receipt for a country. It is the total price tag of every single good and service produced in a year. But judging an economy's success purely by the total number at the bottom of that receipt is a trap. If prices are rising, that total number will climb even if the country isn't actually making any more goods. When we zoom out from one bakery to an entire nation, the math gets complicated, but the core problem remains the same. If we just count up all the current price tags on everything sold today, we get nominal GDP. That is the raw, unadjusted cash total, just like our bakery's deceptive $400 revenue. To see if we are genuinely moving forward, we need a way to strip away those price hikes. We want to know if we are actually building more homes, writing more software, and giving more haircuts. That is where real GDP comes in. It's the measurement that looks at physical output by ignoring the distraction of changing prices. While nominal GDP tells us how many dollars were spent, real GDP is the metric that reveals whether we are actually making more things than we did before. So, how do economists actually separate the price increases from the production volume across an entire country? They do it using a tool called a base year. Imagine picking a past year, say 2012, and locking all prices to what things cost then. To find today's growth, you multiply modern goods by those frozen prices. Because prices are held completely still, any total growth must come from making more things. This standardizes the math, allowing us to line up a modern economy against past decades and compare them fairly. Using a base year strips away the distortion of inflation, making it clear whether we are actually becoming more productive or just charging more for the same work. To see why relying on the raw cash numbers can be deceptive, we can look at the United States in the 1970s. This was an era defined by skyrocketing costs for everyday items, especially gasoline. This chart plots the country's nominal GDP during that decade. You can see the lines surging upward. If you looked at this graph, you might think the economy was booming, but look at the real GDP over that same period. Once you adjust for inflation, the line reveals that the country's actual output was relatively flat. This is why life felt so difficult. People were bringing home more dollars, but because costs were climbing so quickly, they couldn't actually buy any more than before. In countries suffering from extreme hyperinflation, these nominal numbers detach from reality entirely. Recently in Argentina, the nominal GDP shot up as the government printed more currency. On paper, it looked like growth. In reality, the economy was actually shrinking and living conditions were falling. Without real GDP to expose the mirage, policymakers and citizens can be misled into believing a shrinking economy is actually thriving. You can apply this yourself the next time you see an economic headline flash across the news. There is a simple formula you can use. If you take the nominal GDP growth rate and subtract the rate of inflation, you are left with the real GDP growth rate. So if a headline claims the economy grew by 5%, but you know inflation is at 3%, the true, real growth is only 2%. Institutions like the Federal Reserve and major investors rely on this distinction to make their biggest decisions. They ignore the nominal figures and focus on real numbers because it is the only way to prove society is actually making more things. So the next time a politician or news anchor boasts about record-breaking economic growth, you know exactly what to ask. Is that nominal or real?